Hi, I'm Brian, WB9QVR for the World Beyond 7.121. Today, we're here at the Voice of America Museum in Westchester, Ohio, but we're not going to talk about museum-y older stuff. Today, we're actually going to talk about youth, specifically youth on the air. That's coming up next on the World Beyond 7.121. So why are we at the Voice of America talking about youth on the air? Well, that's because this was the home for YOTA Camp 2021. And here to talk about the YOTA program where it all happened this past year is Neil Rapp, WB9VPG. Welcome, Neil.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Just like to know a little bit about your personal and professional history and in particular how it relates to kids and amateur radio.
Well, you know that pretty well because we were young hams before there were this many young hams, and so we got to know each other in southern Indiana pretty early on, and anytime you found another young person on the air, you were all over, making that contact and getting to know that person, and that's really my motivation for doing all of this. Is I don't want those missed opportunities that that I had, being licensed at age 5. That doesn't happen every day.
Absolutely.
But it's amazing the amount of 10-year-olds that we have here in the U.S. especially. But we have a fairly substantial ham population of young people, and so this program came along in Europe. I heard about it on my podcast, Ham Talk Live, and finally said, okay, what do I need to do to get this happening? And so here we are. It worked, but being a young person in amateur radio isn't always the easiest thing. So we want to change that, and we've gotten better at getting young people into ham radio, but there was nothing out there to keep them in ham radio.
Sure.
And that's our primary focus. We are not a license class. We are not here to bring people from all over the Americas to get them through the technician exam. We are here to build a community of these young hams so that they do know each other and they can make skeds and talk to each other and work on things and work on projects. So if somebody's wanting to put together a Pi Star and doesn't know what to do, there's a community of peers that they can go to. Sure, there's the experts, and one of the hardest things about being the director of YOTA Camp is having these world-renowned people come to you and say, I want to come do a workshop on X, and I have to say, I'm sorry, but no.
For kids.
It's for kids by kids, and so we had over 80% of our leaders were age 31 or under. And our goal was 50%, and we well exceeded that, and that's we want to keep pushing that up, and it's the year where we're really kind of transitioning the leadership over to the young people. We've shown how to do it. We're going to make some adjustments, but it's about the young people, and they are more willing to ask their peers than they are a world-class contester, for example. And so we want to get that community going so that relationships like you and I had when we were kids are predominant, and that we expose these kids to a lot deeper ham radio stuff that they are interested in, that they want to do, that will keep them in the hobby. We have so many kids that get into the hobby, and then 2-3 years later, you never hear them on again.
Sure.
And so it's our goal to do something about that.
Can you provide a bit of background on the YOTA global organization, how it came about? And you mentioned earlier about how you became acquainted with it, but just tell us more about it.
Sure. In 2011, Youngsters on the Air was formally solidified, I guess it would be the way to say it. There were some cultural exchange youth programs going on that were funded by governments in Europe, and they were trying to, get some cultural diversity exchange going on, and ham radio ended up being one of the things that was a little part of that, and all of a sudden it just turned into all out radio. And so the people in IRU Region 1 then later adopted this program and took over the sponsorship of it, and it's been under the direction of Lisa Linders, PA2LS, and now Philip Springer, DK6SP, yeah. And Philip's doing a marvelous job. I'm on Telegram with Philip constantly, coordinating this and that with YOTA Month and these kinds of things, and they've been a tremendous help. But the real reason for moving it here to the Americas and expanding into the Americas was Sterling Coffee, Sterling Man now, N0SSC, and Sam Rose, KC2LRC, were sent to the Austria camp, and their job was to report back on what's going on and, work with them and see if this is something that we can replicate in the U.S. And they came back and filled out this big report and had this presentation already, and they reported back to their sponsors, but there were a lot more roadblocks for doing it here than there was in Europe. They also have youth hostels, so they have cheap accommodations, and they can just kind of move into one of those. And when we decided that this was the place to do it, the one thing that was missing, and the one thing that concerned Sterling and Sam was we're not going to have people stay here overnight. And the shack was always open, and you could stay up until 1 a.m. and get on the radio and do all those kinds of things. And I said, well, we've got a hotel across the street. Let's see if we can put some antennas up. Let's see if we can put a shack in the hotel, and we'll just shuttle back and forth. And it took some convincing, but finally they're like, yeah, you really have this great facility here. We've got outdoor space, we've got indoor space, we've got antennas, we've got everything else that we need, and
a cool history.
Yes,
of this
and a
building.
cool history, and it worked beautifully. So we overcame that obstacle and finally got it off the ground. But these guys were on my podcast, and we're talking about it and how they wanted to get it going, but they just run into roadblock after roadblock, and I'm like, okay, I'm a teacher, I'm your guy. Let's do this.
Yeah, knowing that you were involved with this, literally my first thought when I heard about it was they couldn't have found a better person with the background and your talents and abilities, and you were perfect for leading this camp.
I've said that, as a teacher, I have to do something with next to nothing financially. everything has to be organized. All the legal stuff has to be there, and insurance and all the protection training and background checks and all that kind of thing. And then, you know, we need an established schedule and curriculum, and it's like, that's what I do. And so that it just became a really good fit to take this on. And you know, the challenge this year is now for me to teach other people how to do this. We are not going to stay here at this location forever. The goal is to get this camp moving throughout the entire region, so into South America, into the Caribbean, into Mexico, Canada, and then we are trying to be the catalyst for, as Europe does it, sub-regional camps. So usually 4 or 5 countries will have their own camp, and then from those camps they send people to the region-wide camp. And so we have some initiatives going on in Canada and Argentina. We'll see how those play out, but they're looking at trying to start at sub-regional camps in their countries, and so we want to rotate this around. We want to train the kids. The whole idea is for the kids to lead everything, because of what we were just talking about, that you know, they're more likely to ask their peers for help, and so they need to be the ones running.
So how many kids attended in 2021?
So we ended up with 24. We originally planned on a maximum of 20 because we didn't know how the fundraising would go. Since we were having to raise most of the funds ourselves, you know, that was a big concern. We said, you know, if we get another $10,000, we'll bump it up to 30, and we did. So we bumped it up to 30. We originally filled 28 spots, but COVID decided to take another run at things, and so the borders were closed, so we could not get any of our international people here. So we lost a few due to that, because we did have 3 or 4 that were planning on coming. And then we lost another 1 or 2 along the way, but we picked up a couple. So we ended up with 24, and it was a really good number. Wow. I think it was a great number to start with, and you know, I fully expect that, you know, we'll fill up the whole 30 this year. Some of the camps in Europe are 100, 120. Wow. So we're hoping, you know, to get up to 50, 75, but really the facility here, 30 is kind of pushing the limit. So we're gonna go for 30 again and see how things go.
Fantastic. What a great first year that was, to have that many attend and have that kind of sponsorship. That's just fantastic.
Yeah, our budget was about $35,000, and so that was not, you know, an easy thing to just say, okay, we're going to do this, and, you know, but our sponsors, you know, really stepped forward, and the ham community stepped forward and made it happen.
Wonderful, fantastic. It's so gratifying as a fellow ham to hear that, you know, so many other people in the ham community responded like that. So what were some of the camp activities? What did the kids do? Oh my goodness, we did so many things. I'll go through them chronologically just to keep me organized, but you know, the first day we gave them a tour of the museum so that they have an idea of the history of this place that they're spending the week. And then we had a banquet where we invited some of the dignitaries and VIPs, you know, to join us, and Tim Duffy, K3LR, was here to give the keynote address and gave a very nice address about you know, how ham radio has helped him in his career. Then we came back here on Monday and did a lot of contesting stuff. Bryant Rascal is here, KG5HVO, who will be competing a second time in WRTC coming up. We did my favorite activity of the week.
was the eyeball sprint. And so what it is a practice of giving an exchange, but without a radio. So you have to walk up to a person and, WB9QVR, WB9VPG, number one, and then just some things. So I think, I was going to pick like your favorite Smurf, but they probably wouldn't know what Smurfs are. So
that's way back.
Yeah. So it was like, favorite sports team or, something that was, more youth oriented. And so, they would have to log that on paper and make sure that they got the call signs right and make sure they got everything right. Then we did a second one. And the second one was the most fun I think I've had in years. All the adults went around creating QRM. So we had pile-ups blaring over the PA system that I had recordings of, and we pumped them through. Will was over here banging on the pans from the meal that we'd had. I was going around the room just going, oh, la. And people were coming around and just throwing out random letters and numbers, just because hey, you need the practice of copying all this stuff with distractions. And it was so much fun. Sure. I mean, it was just so much fun. Now, some of the kids were like, that QRM was just too much.
So it was just like a real contest.
Yeah, it really was. So, we did a lot of the contesting stuff, and then we had an incredible balloon launch day. We launched a high altitude balloon that went up over 90,000 feet. We launched 3 of the mid-altitude balloons that 2 of them ran into storms, and 1 of them did, I think, make it up into Canada. But they were doing, some of them were doing Whisper, some were doing APRS. Will from ICOM was here, taught them about D-Star, got them registered on D-Star, set up the IC705s for D-Star. Wednesday morning we had a ARIS contact. So right over here, they were up here at the podium and did the ARIS contact before our Kings Island day, because that was the only time they could schedule it. So we kind of interrupted our Kings Island trip, but we spent the rest of the afternoon at Kings Island. And by this time, the kids knew each other pretty well. And they did some FM sprints within the park while they were there, which took a little finagling with the administration.
Yes, wanted to make sure they weren't doing anything nefarious with those radios.
Send them pictures of the radios and explain what ham radio was and all that kind of thing. And as luck would have it, right as we were leaving Kings Island, the ISS was going overhead, and it was like perfectly overhead, extremely visible.
And the kids could say, we talked to them today.
We talked to them today, yes. Then we did some satellite stuff, which, the ARIS contact was going to be. We ended up having to do telebridge, but we did work through some satellites. Ruth KM4LAO set that up and did a fabulous job on that. And we had about a dozen aero antennas, and the kids were out in the front lawn making satellite contacts. And then the afternoon we did direction finding out in the front lawn, where some of the ARDF championship team members were here, and they set up the course and explained what to do. The kids earlier in the week built an ARDF receiver kit, and that was something that I wanted to do. Was I wanted them to make sure they get it right, so that they had to use it. Might have been a little too much pressure to put on them, but as it turned out, but it, we had enough working, and we had enough people that jumped in and helped, and made sure we had some working receivers, and they were able to go out in the front lawn and do the transmitter hunt. And then we had a very nice evening. We didn't go anywhere. We had gone to like Dave and Buster's one night, earlier. We did a pizza and pool party at the hotel. We sat around the fire pit making s'mores and just talking and stayed up.
So real camp stuff.
Real camp stuff. And then Friday we ended with an antenna build, so there were different categories. So there was the most creative antenna and the furthest distance, and so that if your antenna skills weren't really great, you could go to a different category and make it work. And so we did some of that, and then it was time to send everybody home, and everybody was kind of like, I don't want this to end.
Well, that's great. They can come back again.
Yeah.
So that's perfect.
And then we had, the shacks running. So anytime there was downtime, the shacks were open. So, we had 3 ICOM 7300s in the shack that you'll see here in a little bit. And we had a couple of 9700s for the satellite stuff, and then they had 15 IC 705s.
Wow.
And so some of them actually took them to Kings Island. They wanted to get up on the Eiffel Tower and operate.
So they were using top-notch equipment.
They were using top-notch equipment, and some of them were getting on remote stations and logging into remote stations and working the kids from the remote station back here. And, it wasn't a special event that ran 24/7. It was, whenever there was downtime, they were able to get on the air, and if there wasn't room, we had some, games for them to play and other things to do. So those are the things that we did.
Okay. Well, regarding the stations that were set up, did you have any special call signs for the week so that people could recognize this is a YOTA group?
Yeah, W8Y was our special event call sign. We use K8Y, K8O, K8T, and K8A for YOTA month. So we wanted something different, but yet, do the youth thing. So unfortunately, we can't do the YOTA suffixes in the U.S. Most countries allow that, and I actually finally pulled the trigger on trying to get that rule change going, and within a day it was, we've tried this a bazillion times, the FCC won't do it.
Oh, wow.
So we'll keep trying. We'll keep trying, but the Whiskey Yankee call sign was what we used throughout the week, and we're still working on the QSL cards, but we're getting those nice little trifold QSL cards made up, and we'll get those out. But they had a chance to use some great equipment. COVID kind of changed that equipment a little bit. We actually had even better stuff that we were supposed to be using, but there were none to be had.
But it sounded like you did have excellent equipment, probably some equipment that kids, they didn't even have access to that quality equipment at home. So this was probably, an even bigger experience in that sense.
Yeah, I think the number of 705s that these kids had at home increased after that camp because they got hooked on it. They tried it out and saw what it could do, and then they were, I know a couple of them got them, but they had some great stuff, that ICOM provided for us, and sent Will to help them learn how to use it and do it. And
perfect. Well, you kind of mentioned, how at the end the kids, were saying, oh, I don't want to leave, I want this to continue. So that leads me into asking, what sort of feedback did you receive after the camp from, the kids and the adults? Yeah,
so in true teacher style, we did a what we call in the business a pre-test and a post-test. We give the same test, before and after, except it wasn't a test, it was a survey. But we gave them a survey, how confident are you about contesting? How confident are you about operating? How much time do you spend contesting in a year? How confident are you in making a contact on your own? Those kinds of things, and then at the end, how was the operating? How was the food? How was the camp? Would you recommend it to someone else? All this kind of thing, and we had everybody except one rate coming back as a 5 out of 5, and then recommended that someone else come to the camp. Every single one rated it a 5.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Again, for the first year, you expect a few bumps in the road,
Right.
but to have that kind of positivity after the fact is just phenomenal.
Yeah, and afterwards, shortly after, I assigned different people to write different articles for different magazines, be on different podcasts, all this kind of thing. And if you read some of the articles in CQ and QST, and you see how they wrote them. Yeah, I helped them edit it a little bit, but they were the ones writing it, and they just raved about the camp, and so much so that many of them are going to return next year, not to be a camper, but to take over running the show. And that's exactly what we were asking for.
You can't ask for anything more than that. That's the ultimate compliment. It's sort of like Tom Cruise coming back to Top Gun school to be an instructor.
Yeah.
That they thought that much of it that they want to be involved,
Right.
sort of behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Since this interview is taking place in December, which is YOTA month, can you tell me about some of the activities and things that are taking place in the YOTA world during YOTA month?
Sure. So YOTA Month is a special event that was started by the youngsters on the air, the original people over in Europe. And we are a part of that. We expanded into the Americas 3 years ago when the idea of the camp started up, and it's continued to grow. We have more and more operators on, and this year we have a whole lot more countries on. We've had a country here or there join us in the U.S., but this year we have El Salvador just came through this morning, actually. The approval is done, so they are official. So we have YS1 YOTA. We also have a group in Peru, a group in Argentina. We have 2 groups in Canada. And we had a group in Cuba that just suddenly applied. We didn't know anything about them, but they applied. We may end up with Puerto Rico. We're still trying to figure out what's going on there. We didn't know anything about them either, but they've got a call sign now, so we're still trying to figure that one out. But we have those 4 call signs here in the U.S. And Bryant, our contesting guru, is training Case Van Oosprey W0AAE to take over his job as YOTA Month coordinator in the future. So he has an assistant now to keep this revolving, and that's one of the things that I've been offering advice and support, and here's what you need to do, and then that's it. They run it, and it's and now we're into that mode of, okay, let's train somebody else to do it, so that way it doesn't all fall on one person, and we're prepared for the next cycle when we need to find someone else to do it. Region 3 over in Asia and the South Pacific, they are on as well, but most of the activity is out of Europe. But I believe there are 62 as of today, 62 YOTA call signs. The U.S. is the only one that doesn't have YOTA on the end. But all month long, those stations are operated by people that are under 26 years old. and they've already made over 50,000 cues. And we're only halfway through December. And this is when the activity really starts to pick up, because people are coming home from universities and going on break at school. And so the second half of the month is when it really starts firing up. So I fully expect we'll have over 100,000 cues by the time the month is over. Wow. So if you hear those stations on, give them a call. They will end in YOTA, or, like I said, in the US, K8Y, K8O, K8T, and K8A. If you go to our website, youthontheair.org, there is a link there to DX Summit, and it puts in all the search filters so that you get just YOTA stations. So that's the easiest way if you want to seek out a YOTA station. The easiest way is just go there and click that link, and it will pop up all the spots.
Excellent. It's so heartening to hear not only about YOTA as a whole, but specifically this activity in December. You mentioned some of these stations, some of these countries coming on the air that you weren't even aware of. It's almost a spontaneous thing. They're aware of what's going on in the YOTA program. They want to be a part of it, and they're just jumping on. That's so fantastic.
Yep. Yep. There's an award scheme, so you get so many points for making the first contact with a YOTA station, and then there's a reduced number of points if you work them on a different band or mode. And if you get just 15 points, you can get a certificate, and then there are different levels that you can get if you get more points than that. But IRU Region 1 runs all of that for us. They do all the QSLing for us. We just provide the operators and upload the logs, and they've got all the systems set up to process everything automatically and do everything. So our guys are scheduling operators and just making sure that logs are uploaded and that kind of thing. And we're very happy to be a part of that.
And kids are just having tons of fun, it sounds like.
They are. I've been following Millie, YS1 YOTA, who just got approved today, and I've heard her on satellites before, and I tried to get her actually on the way up here, and the satellite kept turning off, and people weren't giving space, and so I couldn't get through. But I've been watching on Twitter, and she posts all the contacts that she makes in a satellite pass, and she's making 8, 10, 12 on a satellite pass, and I'm just like, I'm lucky to get 2.
Right, and generally 1 is about it for me. If I can get that. So that's just phenomenal that she's able to do that.
And we've got some satellite operators here in the U.S. as well, and then tons of people on HF, and then there's a few out there on Echolink, RLP, that kind of thing, so that we get some of the techs involved as well.
I know plans are still a little bit fluid, but what can you tell us about the YOTA Camp for 2022?
YOTA Camp for 2022 is in the plans. We fully intend to do that. So we will be announcing that plan extremely soon. We do have dates set, so we'll be announcing that soon at youthontheair.org. This year's focus is training the next leaders of the camp. More of that responsibility is going on the young people, and it goes back to what we started off talking about, that young people work better with other young people.
Speaking of the 2022 camp, who should make plans to attend the camp?
Okay, so if you want to attend the camp, you need to be, first of all, licensed. You do not have to have a general or an extra. You can be a tech, but you do need to have a license. And you need to be between the ages of 15 and 25. So, including, all the way up to 26. If you're a few months off, we will consider it. So if you want to go ahead and apply, if you're 14 or if you're 25 and a half, go ahead and apply. We're going to give preference to, the 15 to 25 range, and you fill out an application, which will be online on youthontheair.org. I believe February 11th is the day that that window will be open. Then we will review the applications, select our campers, notify them, give them a chance to accept, and then we will keep filling that up, until we have our full complement, or I believe it's May 1st is kind of okay, we have to submit rooming lists and get shirts made and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's May 1st is like the end date, but that timeline is already on the Youth on the Air website. The cost of this, we talked about the sponsors. It actually averaged out to about $1,150 per camper, not counting the equipment that was provided, just for housing, for food, for supplies, all the paracord and solder and soldering stations and all that stuff. We wanted to keep the cost down, but we didn't want to make it free because we're afraid of no-shows. So we set an arbitrary price of $100. So it costs $100 to come. We do have a scholarship fund, however, so if you can't afford the $100, you can apply for a scholarship, and so we just kind of take the extra time to make sure that you're going to show up. Wow. And then the other thing is you're responsible for transportation to Cincinnati. Once you get here, then we will transport you everywhere throughout the week. We have an airport shuttle, the day of arrival and the day of departure. So if you can work out your times, we send one shuttle, but we do have that, and we try to, arrange the time to fit as many people on that as possible. So you do have to get that. Now, for our international people, so anyone that's looking to do this out of the U.S., we do have some people who have stepped up and said, we will provide some travel grants. So for people who need to fly into the country, we have some money for that as well to help with that, or maybe even cover that. So we're trying to keep the cost, minimal, to make sure that kids all have access to this program.
It sounds very much like if the interest is there, that you will find a way.
Right, exactly.
So that's fantastic. So don't let any of those things be roadblocks. They can always be worked around.
Right,
So.
it's there for a reason. We just need to make sure that people show up.
Well, switching gears just a little bit, there are a lot of adults obviously in the hobby. The vast majority are adults. Some of them maybe not quite as old as me, but there are a lot of us in the hobby who are very interested in encouraging youth participation, but we're not really a part of the YOTA organization. So what can we as adult hams do to sort of foster that interest among young people?
Well, first of all, we need the hams to start with. So, if you're bent on getting kids into ham radio, great, do that, because, like I said, our focus is trying to keep them around. But, do that. There are many ways that you can help. Of course, financial donations are needed. On our website, youthontheair.org, there is a donate button, and we have several different ways that you can do that. PayPal, GoFundMe, added Venmo this week. There's an Amazon charity list of supplies that we know that we're going to need. So if you want to pick out what your money is going toward, you can buy those things on Amazon, and they will ship directly to us. And then also we have the Amazon Smile thing, where if you designate the organization that's funding the camp. As your Amazon Smile donation, Amazon will take part of the money that you spend and donate it. So that actually doesn't cost anything. It's just a matter of making sure you designate us as your selected charity. So those are all ways that you can help. Work us anytime we're on the air, because these kids can't practice pile-ups unless they've got pile-ups. So, when we're in camp, make sure that you're working the special event station and the YOTA month stations. And, most of our volunteers are kind of local, because we don't want people, traveling thousands of miles just to stuff bags full of T-shirts and stuff. But we've had a lot of help from the club here, Westchester Amateur Radio Association, that's in cooperation with the Voice of America Museum. And surrounding clubs that I've kind of gone around and talked to, and so we had people show up and put soldering irons together one day, and checked them out and make sure they worked, and stuffing T-shirts in bags, and all kinds of stuff. If you want to do some things off-site, for instance, I know someone who graciously put together some really killer highlight videos.
I don't know who that is.
So this old friend of mine from way back when stepped in at the last minute, and I said, "You remember that time when we were at Hamvention talking about you doing all these videos for your kids' band? How would you like to edit some YOTA videos?" So we shot all the video and uploaded everything to Google Drive, and you sat in Newburgh and did all the editing and put together some fabulous video that the kids raved about, the adults raved about, and we've used it for so many promotional things, and there's more coming, and you'll see some of that in this piece, I'm sure. But the videos were absolutely fabulous, and it was great to have you, off-site, to where we could just send you stuff and you can work on it at home. So, there may be some things that we can have people, off-site do. We're thrilled that you're coming next year.
Happy to be a part of it.
Yes, and do some of the video shooting as well, in addition to your fabulous videos. But if you haven't seen those, make sure you check them out. They're on our YouTube channel, and I don't know if you have them on the show channel, but
I don't have them on there, but I'll put the links in the description for this video.
Yeah,
so all the links for everything will be there. So we've talked about a lot. We really want you to interact with the YOTA organization, so we'll put those links in there.
Okay, so we have our own YouTube channel where we have all kinds of things going on. You can actually watch the entire opening and closing ceremonies, the entire ARIS contact. And one thing that I haven't talked about much, and I actually talked about this on my podcast last night with Sterling. Sterling N0SSC has been organizing these Zoom meetings every other week with different youth volunteers around the region, and trying to promote YOTA and get the YOTA involvement that we've talked about. And so he's actually recorded those meetings and posted them on our YouTube channel as well. So you can get a hold of him and get the links to those. But we've posted them, so anybody who's interested in another country getting things going with YOTA, what we've been up to.
Sure. All right, I think that's all the questions. So I will turn it over to you for a closing statement. Any points you'd like to make? Appeal for money, or campers, or whatever.
Yes, please send money. We've been very grateful for the support that we've had. so many sponsors that you see at the end of the videos, foundations, manufacturers that have donated equipment, and even smaller organizations that have donated to make this work. And so we appreciate that. We are working on some new funding ideas, and so those will be announced soon. But you can always go to the youthontheair.org, hit donate, and it shows you all the ways. There's even some like I think it's Benevity that works through workplaces, and so if you work someplace, you can designate where that company donates their money, and so we've had a couple of donations come in through that. So that may be someplace that your workplace could donate to. But yeah, and then we're always looking for campers. So if you know of a ham that's between 15 and 25, make sure they know about us. On our website, we don't just promote this camp and YOTA Month. We have links to all of the youth activities that we're aware of. So, Remote Ham Radio has a really big youth program right now where they're giving free time on their remote stations to youth, and they're doing some great stuff. And there's the Skywarn group out in Missouri that has a youth contingent, and I saw it and I was worried that in a year or two it may go away. It hasn't. It's stuck. The yacht and YARC and all these things. YDXA, the Youth DX Adventure they're getting ready to go to. I think it's Costa Rica again. There are all these different activities, and so we link to all of those, and we want to kind of be the umbrella. We're not going to tell you what to do. We're going to tell you where you can find this stuff, and so that's our big thing. So just check youthontheair.org. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have an RSS feed, YouTube channel, all those kinds of things. And if you're interested in those bi-weekly meetings, we also have a groups.io set up. Sterling did, and Ward Silver and 0AX, and they're really focused on that part where I'm focused on the camp part. But all of that's there, so check it out. And we're really looking forward to this summer when we can do it all again.
Okay, that's perfect. Well, I'll go ahead and wrap up here real quick.
Now, wait a minute, that's my line from my show. We're going to wrap this up.
That's right. It's RAPP.
Yeah.
This up. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to steal that just for this. Thank you, Neil, WB9VPG, for joining us today. Very much appreciate it. Thank you for all that you do for Ham Radio. Don't forget Ham Talk Live. It's where all your favorite podcasts come from. So definitely check that out. And I'm Brian, WB9QVR, for the World Beyond 7.121. Thanks.